court, little up and under, and then use the long stride. Pretty quick. Giddy keeps it himself and takes it up as he glides with the finger roll.
What is up, and welcome to the Uncontested Postgame podcast. I'm your host for the night, Nick, as the Thunder lose to the Orlando Magic by a final score of 126 to 115. We are proudly part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and dailythunder.com. And if you don't already, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating, and also follow us on socials at Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. So again, the Thunder fall by 11 points to the Magic tonight. I think it's important context to consider that the Thunder were on the second out of a back-to-back, especially a back-to-back that was coming off of a game in which they scored 150 points. Not that they would come into this game taking it less seriously after playing so well the night before, but there's certainly something to be said about that. Whenever you're kind of on a high, you literally couldn't miss the night before. There always seems to be this kind of regression to the mean, and so the Thunder not looking great offensively tonight, even with Shea back in the lineup, is not overly surprising. Before we get into the game flow itself, I wanted to give my big takeaways. The first one, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, his defense just continues to impress. I think early in the season, he was criticized a bit for giving up quite a few points on defense. I think the context there that people were perhaps missing was he was being asked to play a variety of positions, right? Like, J-Dub's versatile. He can play 1 through 4 on both ends. You think about a rookie coming into the league and learning to adjust to the pace of play. You're going up against guys that are bigger, stronger, faster. So when he's guarding, smaller guards, those guys are a lot faster than guys he saw in college, especially playing at a school like Santa Clara. Not that there's not great athletes, great players, but he wasn't going up against the competition or even close that he is now at the NBA level. So defending smaller, quicker guards, even, defending wings. Sometimes he's going up against wings that are 6'9", 6'10" in this, jumbo NBA. And then he's even playing some 4, like defending guys that are traditional power forwards that are strong and can space the floor. And so I think he flashed the defensive upside early, although his defensive metrics were not great early on. You're starting to see, as he adjusts to the style of play in the NBA, he looks a lot better. The last 2 games against Boston, he had 4 steals. Tonight, I think he had 5. I'm going to double check the box score. 5 last that I looked. Jalen Williams finishes with 5 steals. So 9 steals in the past 2 games. And to be clear, steals are not the only indicator of good defense. You can have a high number of steals in a game and actually be bad on the defensive end, kind of cherry pick. But J-Dub's defense has been much improved of late. It's been impressive to see him guard a variety of different players. And even dating back to Santa Clara, he was a guy that got his first action at the college level for his defensive upside. He's got a 7'2" wingspan. He's 6'6", 6'7". It just provides a ton of versatility, and he's been super impressive on that end over the past couple games, including tonight, 5 steals. Second big takeaway, Isaiah Joe. I feel like a broken record. I feel like I say this every post game. I feel like I say this every group pod. Got to be the best shooter the Thunder have had in recent history. Like, even looking back to like 2008 when the Thunder first started playing in Oklahoma City, and you look at some of the best shooters they've had. Take away someone like Paul George, who just was nuclear in one of his seasons in Oklahoma City. I think he broke the record for like most 3-pointers made in a season. Isaiah Joe as a shooter based on efficiency, making most of the shots that he puts up, whether it's on high volume and going, 7 for 12, or whether it's on a smaller amount of attempts and a more limited role going 2 of 3 in a game. Like, he can do it all. He doesn't need a ton of shots to get going. And just again, tonight, he continues to prove to be one of the best shooters in the history of the Thunder, at least to this point this season. I don't think playing 30 games for a team warrants being on any sort of list as it relates to being one of the Thunder's best shooters. You got to put together a body of work and do it over a longer period of time. But tonight, Isaiah Joe finished 3 of 6 from deep, 50%, It's dang near what he's doing on the season. Just a really, really, really good shooter, and a guy that Oklahoma City has on a team-friendly minimum deal this year and the 2 years following. So just a great pickup by Presti and staff in the offseason. Next big takeaway is actually a little bit about the Magic, but I'll hone it back into the Thunder. Paolo Banchero, obviously incredible, has been all year. I think he's ran away with the Rookie of the Year trophy at this point, especially with how Ben Mathurin's struggled of late from an efficiency standpoint. This Magic team, and again, tonight's team was a bit depleted. We'll get into that here in a second, but this Magic team truly revolves around him. Like, he is the guy, he's the alpha. Tonight he finished with 25 points on 17 shots. Like, you will take that all day long, especially as from a rookie. But the way he transforms this team, like the Magic are still not a great team. They're not even probably a good team, neither the Thunder. They're just up and coming and getting better. And the way he impacts the game as a rookie is super special. And it makes you realize every year, a lot of these top picks just transform a rebuilding team and change the way they play, change the outcomes of a lot of their games. Like tonight, if Paulo hadn't played, Magic probably don't win. Bringing that back to Oklahoma City, with how much they've improved this year, again, broken record, Chet fixes a lot of their problems. And it's just hard enough to think about if Chet Holmgren was playing on this team, that they wouldn't be closer to probably 500 on the season, especially if he played the way that we saw in Summer League. There probably would have been some growing pains early on going against some of the top centers in the NBA, but it's hard not to imagine Chet Holmgren making this team really, really, really fun to watch. And watching Paulo tonight just brought that back to light a bit, since he was the number one pick right ahead of Chet. Speaking of centers, Chet, like I said, would fix a lot of the problems Oklahoma City has. They give up a ton of rebounds. They give up a ton of points in the paint, and it's gotten worse as the season goes on due to injury. So you lose Chet, before the season even starts. You lose JRE, who isn't really even a center, but was asked to play center because of the lack of front court depth. He gets hurt early in the season. From there, Pokashevsky gets hurt recently. He's out for the foreseeable future, at least 5 or 6 more weeks. Again, he's not really a center either, but he's only a 7-footer on the roster, and you need him. He's out now. So then you're left with J. Will, rookie out of Arkansas, who's undersized. He's like 6'9". Mike Muscala, who's 6'10", 6'11", good three-point shooter, really, really good veteran big, but not a traditional center by any means. And then Darius Bazley, who rarely plays anymore. You're left with those 3 guys entering the night, and J. Will gets hurt. Ankle, doesn't come back. I haven't seen anything yet on the timeline for return or the severity of that ankle injury, but you got to imagine if he's missing any time. It's sad to even say on January 4th that losing a rookie center that's played most of the year in the G League is going to hurt this team, but it is. Like, you're sitting here now with Mike Muscala as your only real center and Darius Bazley, who, like I said, another DNP tonight. At the end, it was a blowout loss. Like, it was legitimate garbage time. He was the only active player that once again did not play tonight. This is the night after he was I think he played 6 minutes against the Celtics in a game where they were blowing him out. And the theme is the last week or two, there's been a lot of games where the Thunder have just struggled with size and rebounding and defending the paint, which are things Darius Bazley could absolutely help with. Like, I don't think he's going to give you a ton of offensive production, but as it relates to boarding the ball and protecting the paint, getting some blocks, like that's what he does. And the Thunder still opt not to play him. So between the J. Will injury, the Bays DNPs, I don't know who's going to play center for this team. Like, you saw a lot of Kenrich Williams out there at center tonight. It's just not going to work. Like, barring another blowout like you saw against the Celtics, where the Thunder just couldn't miss anything, were playing the best games of their lives, they're going to struggle, especially on this upcoming road trip. They've got Philly again. They've got a bunch of quality bigs they're going to go up against. And if you got to play Kenrich Williams and Mike Muscala as your primary centers, probably going to struggle quite a bit. Seeing Mo Bamba out there tonight really made me wish Oklahoma City would make a move for a guy like him on a halfway decent contract, can space the floor, good rim protector. I think he is the perfect center. It's obviously fits the timeline as well. So he could, back up Chet, play alongside Chet in certain situations next year and the year beyond. But this season he'd be the perfect guy. And I don't think he would take too much to acquire. Like I think, or it's been reported earlier this season that the Magic would move off of Bamba for a first round pick. That's pretty broad because you don't know if they're asking for like a solid first round pick or if it's a projected late first round pick or a certain protection they're looking to avoid. Nonetheless, I think Mo Bamba would be a guy that fixes all of the above in the short term, but also would be a quality piece in the long term. Going through the actual game itself, I mentioned the Magic weren't really themselves tonight due to the debacle with the Detroit Pistons. They had a couple guys still facing suspensions. They had Bol and held in safety protocols. Jonathan Isaac still recovering from injury. He's listed now not as out, but as injury recovery, so he should be coming back soon. No Jalen Suggs with ankle soreness. No Mo Wagner with suspension. Same with Franz Wagner, Admiral Schofield. All those guys had league suspensions. So the Magic only had 9 players available. The game itself had a pretty slow start to it. It didn't feel like there was much energy early on. It was 10-8 halfway through the first quarter. You see J-Dub get a couple of his steals early, so he sparked the offense with back-to-back steals for buckets towards the end of the first quarter. Magic extend their lead to 7 with 2 minutes left in the first, and then the Thunder closed the lead. It's 31-28 at the end of quarter one. SGA had 11 points. But again, like I mentioned earlier, even before J-Will went down, the rebounding and the paint were a problem. Magic were a plus 10 in the first quarter. Their rebounding numbers were 16 versus Oklahoma City 6. In fact, they had 5 offensive boards, which 5 offensive boards versus 6 total for the Thunder really tells you all you need to know. Another theme about this game was slow starts to just quarters in general. So in the second quarter, Magic come out on a 7-0 run. They continue to dominate the paint. They take a 49-36 lead halfway through the second quarter. They actually extended their lead to like 61-44, somewhere in that ballpark, with about 3 minutes left. Caleb Houston knocked down a triple that really started to pull away. That's right before half. From there, Oklahoma City has a few nice shots. They pull within 10 with about 90 seconds left. And then once again, it's just a game of runs per usual. The Thunder fell late in the first half and we're down 70-53 going into the break. Anytime you let up 70 points in a half, like it's going to be hard to overcome. Down 17 at half because of the lack of defense or the lack of paint presence in allowing those 70 points. Points in the paint at half was 36-16, which was just brutal. Looking at the end of the game, I'm actually curious. I hadn't looked at this. Points in the paint ends up being 30-48, and rebounding ends up being 49-33. So, story of the game. I'll break down the second half here real quick, though. Another slow start for the Thunder in the third. Magic had a 5-1 run to start that quarter. There's a lot of free throws in the third. It felt like the game couldn't really get any rhythm because there was free throws both ways. SGA was the guy on the Thunder that continued to get to the line. But it was 80-60 halfway through the third. So a 20-point game. Isaiah Joe hits back-to-back triples, pulls the Thunder within, I believe it was 13 with about 4 minutes left. Oklahoma City actually pulled within 9. Late in the third quarter, it was 95-86. And then they finished the quarter 95-88 was the score after 3. Oklahoma City finished on a 30-15 run. Fourth quarter comes around. The Magic eclipse 100 points early in the fourth, going back to the giving up 70 in the first half. Anytime a team's got 100 super early in the final frame, never a good thing. The lead went kind of bounced back. It was like 10, 12, 14, back down to 9, up to 11, kind of that 8-14 range for most of the fourth. Terrence Ross was starting to get cooking. Paolo Banchero making some tough buckets late. The Thunder did have a short run there at the end to make it a fairly close game with about 3 minutes left, but then they couldn't get close enough to actually overcome the Magic, and they ended up falling, like I said, 126-115. Looking at the box score, a couple things that I will mention here. J-Dub, highly impactful game, struggled tremendously on offense. He was 2 of 8 from the floor, 0 of 2 from 3. But he did have the five steals I mentioned, 4 assists, a block. So it's good seeing a young guy like J-Dub that doesn't have a good offensive night that continues to find ways to impact the game. SGA was our player of the game with 33 points. He was 17 of 18 from the line. That is incredible. Just even getting to the line that many times speaks to how much he's improved as a finisher, and then just getting the refs to blow the whistle. We see the elite players in the league do that by the time they're reaching their prime, which is why SGA is averaging 30 a game this year, is because he's found a way to get to the line. Josh Giddey, 16, 5, and 4. Solid night for him. I mean, that's close to his average on any given night. Lou Dort finished pretty bad from the floor, 3 of 11, but all 3 of those makes were 3-pointers, 3 of 6 from deep, 4 of 4 from the line. He finishes with 13 points. Off the bench, not much doing. Did have 3 guys in double figure scoring, but they were quiet points. Like Kenrich Williams had 12. Isaiah Joe is probably the most sparky that I mentioned with 13. Mike Muscala had 11. He knocked down 3 of his 4 3-point attempts. But just overall, the scoring didn't feel like it was there. They did score 115 points, so it wasn't as bad as maybe the eye test looked. But giving up 126, it's tough to win a game when you're giving up that many points. For the Magic, again, Paolo had 25. The Magic actually had 8 of their 9 starters in double figures. Caleb Houston with 11, Wendell Carter with 13 and 13, Markelle Fultz had 13, Gary Harris had 18, Mo Bamba had 10, RJ Hampton with 12, Terrence Ross with 18. So just an impressive win, honestly, for Orlando. Being down 6 players for various reasons, playing against a Thunder team that's coming off a huge win. Well-balanced attack. Like Paulo led the way. Everybody else chipped in, did their part, and the Magic just were the better team. Straight up. Good things from both sides, but the Magic were the better team when it was all said and done. See if we got any Twitter questions here. I tweeted out the question, but hadn't read through these yet. Of course, the joking question that we expected to get is this team better without Shea? 150 points without him last night, only 115 tonight. Hope that's a joke because the answer is no. Let's move here. Is Lou Dort's driving worse than Baisley's? Lou Dort's driving's fine. I think it's the decision making at the rim and the touch around the rim. Like he gets to the rim and uses his body well to get there and gets good looks. Just doesn't know what to do when he gets close to the rim. He either doesn't have the touch, throws it off too hard, turns it over. I think Baisley's a different kind of bad as a driver because he just gets tunnel vision and feels like half the time he trips or turns it over before he even gets near the rim. They both can improve their game near the rim, but I wouldn't say that Dort is similar to Baisley offensively at all. That's it from Twitter. Looking for the Thunder now 16 and 22 on the season as we're sitting here today. That puts them at 13th in the Western Conference, and that moves them down to 25th in the league. So back in that number 6 slot for lottery odds. I feel like that's a sweet spot. It's gonna be really, really hard for like the Detroits, the Houstons, the Charlottes. As we're talking now and I'm recording, watching the Rockets game in the background. And last I looked, they were down like 30 to the Pelicans. Yep, still 30. Nope, 20. They've pulled closer, but they're bad. Same with the Hornets, same with the Pistons. Spurs are kind of in that bucket as well. I really do feel like, especially with the way some of these teams might tank towards the end that are above the Thunder, especially the Jazz, who have lost 5 straight, getting that 6th highest lottery out would actually be a win at this point, because that would be a situation in which the Thunder were halfway competitive all season, but still get a decent shot at Victor Wembanyama. Even if you're a bottom 3 team, the best he gets 14%, although the floor of your pick is higher, the further down you are in the reverse standings. Ultimately, you still have a shot at that top pick with the 6 best lottery odds. Moving forward, 2 more games this week. The Thunder will take on the Wizards Friday, the Mavericks Sunday. Both of those are home games before they head out on a tough road trip. So we'll be back with you guys on Friday. I assume we'll do a group pod following the Mavericks game. But until then, and as always, Thunder up.